Hello chess fans, it's the 10th and penultimate round of the Olympiad in Budapest, and we're going to have a look at the crucial match between India and United States. Well, India has been dominating the event from the beginning till now. Fantastic performance by these young guys. And in this video we're going to check out the game played at board 1. Gukesh, fantastic event for him so far. A dominating performance. He is on 7 out of 8. 3000 plus performance. Absolutely insane. And well, he's playing against Fabiano Caruana, and it's a really big game. It's world's number 5 against world's number 2. This is a game you don't want to miss. And it's very important for the outcome of the event. And of course also for Gukesh, as he's playing for a personal gold medal on board 1. So let's dive straight into the action. Just please one little help asked from you guys. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and then we are going to see what happened in that crucial game as Gukesh goes for 1d4. Knight f6, c4, e6, g3. We have the Catalan opening. That's something Gukesh has been playing quite a bit. d5, bishop g2. And here Fabi, as always, he's the first one to drop a little surprise. Maybe even a big surprise, because the move he played is not very well known. He goes for knight c6. It's kind of a strange way of developing the knight, because usually you would like to be more flexible with your c-pawn, either to put it on c6 or maybe challenge the center later and then get the knight out to c6. So it's looking a bit passive, but Fabi always very well prepared. So let's see what he has in mind. Knight f3. And now, real surprise as he goes for this move, rook b8. That's something which has almost never been played in a grandmaster game. It's a very subtle idea. Black is intending to take on c4 and then stick to the pawn with a move b7, b5, so that he doesn't have to worry about that rook on this long diagonal. That's the main idea behind rook b8. And well, Gukesh goes for a logical move. Pawn takes d5. And instead of recapturing, first Black inserts this check with the bishop on b4. White blocks it with knight c3, pawn takes d5, bishop g5, logical developing move. Black is challenging the bishop immediately. Bishop takes knight, queen takes back. Of course the pawn is pinned on d5, so White doesn't have time to take on d5. He's gonna castle, so now there's this threat. Bishop takes c3, b takes c3. And this looks like a pretty logical, natural type of position. Maybe White's position does look a little bit more pleasant, especially this bishop on c8. It's not looking too great yet. On the other hand, Black is rock solid and the bishop can also soon be developed. Well, knight e2 played, attacking the pawn on d5 with the bishop. Knight e7, typical maneuver. The knight is not that well placed on c6. Now it's defending the pawn. And after the move e3, the bishop goes to e6. So Black has managed to complete his development. I think that's the sort of game Fabi had been hoping for. But also Gukesh, he has managed to avoid an immediate disaster, if you can call it like that. But you never know. When being surprised in the opening, sometimes things can go horribly wrong. Here, the position just looks pretty balanced. Maybe White has a slightly more pleasant position. Because after queen a4, he's attacking the pawn on a7. And what are you going to do? Like something like knight c8 looks like a bizarre move to protect the pawn, but later the knight can come to a central square like d6 or b6. Looks quite nice. a6 is the more human continuation, and White thinks, okay, let's open the position with the move e4. If you do take, the knight will become active, but looks like Black is still pretty okay if you go queen g6. But anyway, Black decided here, a really sharp move, c5. Challenging the center. So now there's full pressure and both sides have a lot of options now. But I think that Gukesh's next move is very instructive. He goes for the move queen a3. So he is exerting more pressure on this diagonal, in particular against that pawn on c5. If you do take on d4, then Gukesh had set a little trap here, as he wanted to go e5 in that case to attack the queen, deflecting the queen from defending the knight. And so if you do take on e5, there is queen takes e7. So that means that Black is not recommended to take the pawn. And Fabi just plays the move b6. Just overprotecting the pawn, that's a good move. If you do take on a6, well, there's pawn takes d4. So that is not a very helpful trade. White instead goes for the move rook a b1, placing the rook on the half-open file, pressurizing the pawn on b6. Okay, the pawn is still defended, so no problems here for black yet. Rook f e8. Black is also improving his piece, and now the rook also defends the knight. Pawn takes c5. Here the pawn is taken, and well, what is black gonna do? You may expect here black to recapture. Was not played in the game. If you do play that, and if you take on c5, there's rook bc8, and the pawn on c3 is quite vulnerable. So that had been black's idea, I guess. However, pawn takes c5 was not played. Interesting idea, but the move played by Fabi shows that he really wants to play for more than equality. He is not trying to equalize, he's playing for the initiative here with the move d4. Very interesting attempt, as if white would take the pawn, there's queen takes d4, and well, pawn on c5, knight on d2, there's a bit of pressure. Maybe white is still a bit better after something like knight b3, but looks like black is still fighting here. But after the move d4, also Gukesh is trying to accept the challenge here with the move c4. He's keeping the pawns on the board. Black now does have a passed pawn. Okay, it's still blocked by the knight, and there's still a lot of pieces on the board. But anyway, things are becoming much sharper now. Queen g5. It is an attack on the knight. And, well, if the knight moves to b3, for instance, there's bishop takes c4. So moving the knight away is not attractive. White instead played rook f d1. And here the pawn on c5 can be recaptured with the queen, but also with the pawn. That was the choice of Fabi. But here Gukesh played the move f4, attacking the queen on g5. Queen goes to h5. And look at this, there is this move f5. The pawn goes even further, attacking the bishop. And here you gotta be very careful as black, because if you move the bishop away, there will come knight f3. And the point is to go h3 and then g4. And look at this queen at the side of the board, it's completely trapped, no square to go. So instead of dropping back with the bishop, Fabi had been calculating a very nice idea. He first captures on b1. White takes back with the rook. And rather than moving the bishop, the queen comes into e2, attacking the knight on d2. So white captures the bishop, black does take the knight, so materials even. Pawn takes f7 with check, king takes back. And, well, white does win a pawn here with queen takes c5. And it looks like the black king is in trouble, but therefore the king goes back to g8. That's absolutely fine. And now white activates the rook to the f-file. Looks like white is in control. And the d pawn is not so dangerous. For instance, if you push it now, there's queen f2 and white is having everything under control. But the big question for black is, how are you going to activate both the rook and the knight? The move I looked at here first was knight g6 with the idea to come to e5, but that runs into queen c6 with an attack on the rook and knight, so you're losing material. So Fabi played here the critical move, king h7. So the king is actually going to support the knight coming to g6, and white wants to prevent that. Queen e5 is a very good move, pinning the knight on e7. So the knight cannot move and also the rook cannot go away, because the rook got to keep the knight supported. Well, queen e3 check. The king got to go into the corner. And since these two pieces, they cannot move, black says, okay, I'm going to use my other asset, the d-pawn. The d-pawn is really, really strong. And question is, should white try to defend against it? If you bring your queen back, for instance, to c3, well, then the knight and the rook are able to move again. So here, bishop h3 was played. Very interesting idea with the aim of improving the bishop. Sometimes it can go to f5, maybe to d7. But here, there is this move d2. And that is a very, very dangerous move, as black all of a sudden has ideas here to go for something like queen e2, maybe even eliminate the main defender of the back rank so that black can queen his d-pawn. And, well, things are incredibly dangerous. Therefore, bishop g4 played so that the bishop covers the queening square and prevents the queen from coming to e2. So it's a razor sharp position. White is up a pawn, but black's pawn is much more dangerous than white's. Well, a lot of ideas here. Queen d3 was played, attacking the rook on f1. King to g2, defending the rook. And now it is queen takes c4. So black very practical decision here, just to regain the material. Everything is under control, and white would like to create some new threats. Played here this move, a4. Now you're thinking, what on earth is the idea of this move? Well, if you take the pawn, which is actually quite a nice idea. I guess that Gukesh's plan was now to come in with the rook to f7. So the queen is no longer on c4, covering that square. You're threatening checkmate. Okay, probably you can still defend everything with rook g8, and after rook takes e7, d1 queen. Well, probably this will fizzle out into a very drawish endgame. But Fabi, playing for his country, playing for himself, he wants to beat Gukesh, of course, also. So he keeps the game going here with queen to c6. It's a nice consolidating move, protecting the rook. And, well, the knight is ready to come to g6 so that the queen will come under attack. Queen d4. Queen is getting out of the e-file and is hitting the pawn on d2. And, well, this is a very big moment in the game, as, well, there are quite a number of options. And probably, and that's the move you really want to play, is knight g6. That's the way to go. It's a nice activation. Your king is getting a little bit safer now. Your rook is active, hitting the pawn on e4. But I'm wondering why Fabi didn't play this move. Not because of queen d2, then at least you can take on e4 and black is absolutely okay. I was thinking maybe Fabi didn't like this move, bishop f5, so that the pawn is defended and the knight is in a very annoying pin. But then there's a very interesting line I want to show you. Queen c2, threatening the promotion of the d-pawn, because there's a discovered check on the king. If king goes away, well, apparently you can go something like rook f8 to pin the bishop. And now this idea like bishop takes g6, king takes g6, now the rook can be taken, but it allows d1 queen. Then all of a sudden black is winning. So probably you got to play something else, but this is absolutely unproblematic for black. So I'm not sure why Fabi didn't play it. He was getting lower on time. Probably he was struggling to find the best move. Probably he also felt that queen g6 is a good move, because you do create a threat against the bishop on g4. That is the first idea. But if the bishop goes, let's say, back to d1 or e2 or to any other square, there's always this plan to go knight c6. And with knight c6, you're attacking the queen, and also the rook once again hits the pawn on e4. But apparently, and that's what Gukesh found, with only 20 seconds left on the clock to reach move 40, we're on move 35, so 6 more moves to go, but he found an incredible resource for white. Rook f4. The rook is leaving the back rank, but defends the bishop. The queen is in charge of the d-pawn, everything is perfectly covered. And one of the tricks here, and that was not played by Fabi, is that knight c6 can just be met by queen takes d2. And white is up a very big pawn as rook takes e4, runs into bishop f5, and the queen is gone. So therefore, knight c6 is not an option. Queen g5 was played, and well, that is a very logical idea, as in case of queen takes d2, okay, white is a pawn up, but after knight g6, black is still fighting against this rook, against the pawn on e4. Probably there are good chances to save the game here. However, again, Gukesh, he's in tremendous form. He played this move h4, attacking the queen, so the queen is forced to go somewhere. Now, if the queen goes, let's say, to a5 to save the pawn, well, then there is rook f7. And that is a mating threat on g7. And, well, if the rook goes to g8 to defend the pawn, well, there's rook takes e7. Black is completely lost, being a piece down. So, well, Fabi, in big trouble here, went back with the queen to g6. But then it's queen takes d2. White is up a very, very big pawn. And, well, still, these pieces, the rook and the knight, they're still quite passive. Rook b8, queen d7, attacking the knight. If knight moves, remember that that idea of bishop f5 is still in the air. So h5 played, and the bishop goes to e6. The bishop is safe, it's still on the board, and the knight is in trouble. Rook b6, counterattack against this bishop, but the bishop stays on the board. Bishop f7. Excellent idea. Now the queen is in trouble. Queen d6 played, offering the exchange of queens. But, well, queen takes, rook takes. That's pawn number 2 on h5. And this is a technically winning position. It's actually very simple now. A few more moves. Knight c6, bishop e2. The bishop comes back, hitting the pawn. a5 played, bishop to b5. Attacking the knight. I mean, if you can liquidate into a rook endgame, things are getting even easier for white. Knight e5. The knight is on the blockading post, but rook comes to f5. Attacking the knight. Rook e6. And here after king f2, well, the position is so bad. There's no counterplay. You're 2 pawns down. White is just going to activate the king, hit the knight. The knight got a move, then you push your pawn. Maybe at some point the pawn on a5 will be hanging as well. Black's position is completely lost. Dead, lost here. So Fabi had to resign. I mean, that's what he did at this point. But it's a crucial victory for Gukesh as his team, India, managed to win this match against United States. 2.5, 1.5. And that means that India managed to win the 45th Olympiad in the open section. A fantastic performance. Basically, with the help of Superman Gukesh on board 1. He's on 8 out of 9, guys. 3000 plus performance. Absolutely insane. Also board 3, Eri Gaisi. Fantastic outing in this event. And they are both getting much closer also to this special elite group of 2800 players. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of this game. Congratulations to India on this massive result. I hope you enjoy this very historical victory for your country. You absolutely deserved it. Fantastic chess. This is the future, the present and the future of chess. Thanks for watching. I will keep you posted with more exciting games from this event.